I remember the night he almost died. It was the night they threw him into the river. The whole village stood by, watching in silence as the current dragged him under. The chief's guards had beaten him fast, breaking his ribs, cutting his face. Then they tied rocks to his feet. His crime: loving the wrong woman. I was there. I saw it all. And I can tell you, this story is not just about love. It is about survival. Kofi was a hunter, one of the best in the village. He was poor, yes, but he was strong. His father had died when he was just a boy, and since then, he had been the one feeding his mother and little sister. Every morning, before the sun even woke up, he would disappear into the forest with his bow and arrows, returning hours later with an antelope or a wild hare. He never spoke much. His eyes were sharp, always watching, always thinking. Adwoa was different. She was laughter. She was bright-colored wrappers and golden earrings. The only daughter of Chief Nanakwame, the richest man in the village. Her father had over 20 cattle, the biggest yam farm for miles, and more gold than any man needed. And yet, somehow, she fell in love with Kofi. They met by accident. She had wandered too far from the village, chasing a butterfly, when she stepped on a snake. Before she could even scream, an arrow flew past her and struck the snake's head. When she looked up, Kofi was standing there, bow still raised, eyes unreadable. "Be careful," he said, then turned to leave. "Wait," she called. And that was it. That was how it all started. Everyone knew they were in love. They thought they were being careful, but nothing in a village stays secret. At first, people whispered about it. Then they laughed. A chief's daughter marrying a hunter. Impossible. When Chief Nanakwame heard, he was furious. "You are to marry Kwabena, the merchant's son. Not some nobody with nothing to his name." "But I love him," Adwoa said, her voice shaking. "Love does not fill your stomach," her father shouted. She was locked in her room after that. But love is a stubborn thing. She found ways to send messages. A little boy, her cousin, would sneak notes to Kofi in the forest. She promised she would not give up on him. But the chief was smarter. He knew Kofi would not give up either. So, he set a trap. One night, Kofi received a message: "Meet me by the old baobab tree. We will run away together." He ran. But when he reached the tree, it was not Adwoa waiting for him. It was the chief's guards. They beat him until he could no longer stand. Blood covered his face. His ribs cracked with every breath. And then, as if that was not enough, they dragged him to the river. The whole village came to watch. No one spoke. No one moved. Adwoa was screaming. She had escaped her room, her hair loose, her feet bare. She ran to her father, fell to her knees, begged. "Please. I will do anything. Just let him go." Her father only shook his head. "Let him die." The guards tied rocks to Kofi's feet and pushed him in. The river swallowed him whole. Adwoa collapsed to the ground. She did not cry. She just sat there, staring at the water, her hands shaking. And then she stood up. She walked to the riverbank, removed the heavy golden bracelet from her wrist, and threw it in. "If he dies, I die too," she said. Then she walked into the river. Gasps filled the air. The chief shouted for his guards to stop her. But before they could reach her, something happened. The river moved. Not like before. Not like water flowing. It moved like hands were inside it, pushing, pulling. And then, just when everyone thought Kofi was lost forever, he surfaced. No one knows how he survived. Maybe the gods had mercy. Maybe the river itself refused to take him. Maybe it was just luck. But Kofi swam to the shore, coughing, shaking, still alive. Adwoa ran to him. She held his face in her hands, crying. He was too weak to speak, but his eyes said everything. The chief could not believe it. He stood there, frozen, his mouth slightly open. His daughter had chosen death over wealth, and somehow, love had won. Finally, he sighed. A long, heavy sigh. "Take him home," he said. And that was it. They say the chief never truly forgave them. But he let them be. Kofi and Adwoa did not need riches. They had each other. They built a small hut near the river, where the trees whispered and the birds sang. Kofi still hunted. Adwoa still laughed. And they were happy. Not every love story needs a palace. Some are written in the dirt, in the trees, in the water. And this one was strong enough to survive a river.